Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. Just wanted to quickly introduce myself as we begin the Winning Edge Leadership Academy Pep Talk. My name is Chevonne Mansfield, Director of Communications at the American Athletic Conference. So let's just wait a couple seconds to see how many people get on, if you don't mind. In my office today at work, I'm looking forward to speaking today. We'll wait for any viewers on. Let's just wait a few minutes to get some folks on, and then I'll begin. Hi, how are you? I see Corinne Millions on. Looking forward to chatting with everyone today. So, let's get started, and I'll briefly introduce myself. Again, I'm Chevonne Mansfield, Director of Communications at the American Athletic Conference, and I want to thank Corinne for inviting me to speak today to kick off the Pep Talk series. And also want to give a shout out to Maria Taylor, the other great co-founder of the Winning Edge Leadership Academy. Hey, Will! I see some comments down there. And while I'm talking, feel free to add any questions, comments, or feedback, because we don't want it just to be me talking, right? So I've been at the American Athletic Conference as Director of Communications for nearly 3 years. I joined the league in December 2013, 6 months after our official born date. So if you're familiar with the college athletics landscape, you'll know that we were reclassified from the Big East Conference. And so I'm nearly 3 years in with the American Athletic Conference. I'm the primary media relations contact and communications contact for several sports, including basketball, golf in the spring, and men's soccer in the fall. So I actually have a men's soccer opener this Friday, and I'm gearing up for that. Prior to joining the American Athletic Conference, I was at the SEC, Southeastern Conference, as Assistant Director of Media Relations for nearly 3 years, and I joined the SEC in 2011, right before they expanded and added Texas A&M and Missouri. I was there during some formative years of the SEC between expansion and the formation of the SEC network, and also the formation of the new college football playoff. Former Commissioner Mike Slive was my boss there, and it was interesting hearing all the chats about that, from moving from the BCS to the college football playoff. So I was at the SEC working primarily for Olympic sports. That includes volleyball, softball, gymnastics, swimming, and diving. And I was there almost 3 years. Before that, I spent a year at the Southwestern Athletic Conference, the SWAC. Their conference office is also in Birmingham. And there I was Assistant Director of Communications and worked primarily with women's basketball and other select sports. I got my start years ago on campus. So my last 3 positions have been at conference offices, but I started out as a graduate assistant at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. They are a Division I school in the MEAC, Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. So I spent 3 years there as a graduate assistant and got a master's degree, and then moved on to Howard University after that as the Assistant Sports Information Director. So I was there for 3 years before moving down south to Birmingham to join the SWAC. So that's quickly my experience. I first started getting involved with social media about 6 years ago at the SWAC. So this was 2010, and think back to 2010, social media wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Twitter was around, but it was still kind of in the beginning stages, and Facebook was around, but it wasn't like at its juggernaut stage as it is now. But there was no Instagram, no Snapchat, there was no Periscope, so no Vine, none of that. So it was great being at the SWAC. I helped establish the social media plan there and get things going. So throughout my years, I've seen it all from small shop to big shop, and have had various levels of experience with digital and social. And so I've learned a couple of things along the way that I wanted to share with you today. In a personal level, how do you leverage social media to achieve your goals in sports business? So I started out, and I'm just going to give you my opinion on how I've carried myself online. Started out personally on Twitter in 2009. I joined Facebook in 2004 when I was in grad school. Now, back then, Facebook was not like it is now. It was only open to college students, and you needed a .edu email address to get on. And it was very bare bones back then. There was no Facebook Live. There was it didn't show all the activity you do. There was no news feed. It was very basic and bare bones. So just having all that years of experience, I kind of knew about social media anyway on a personal level, but didn't start using it on the work side probably until about 6 years ago. At the SEC, we're kind of spoiled there because they have so many resources. They have their own digital and social staff that manage a lot of the social media accounts. So, and then here at the American, I do a little bit of both. I do, it's a mix with our social department. I upkeep our social media and help with the messaging. But on a personal level, I would say the couple of things I learned is that you should not, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a social media expert, but my opinion is that you should not join every outlet there is, every platform, just because it's the hot thing and trendy. The reason I say that is because you're going to stretch yourself way thin, and it is better to focus on just a few accounts and have a good presence there than to have, let's say, Vine, everything else that you're barely using. I personally focus on the big three, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I am on YouTube. I don't use it much. I'm on Google+, mostly because I have a Gmail account, and it's easy to sign into Google+ that way. I'm on Vine. I don't use it much. I should probably cancel that. That's a good example of what I said before not to do. I jumped on Vine a few years ago because at the time, that's the only video platform I could think of to share a message. And shortly after that, Instagram announced their video platform. And then came Periscope, and now there's Facebook Live. So over the years, you may need to tweak how you go about doing things strategically online. But I do suggest being strategic about it and not just going through the motions and posting everything online. You have to be careful about what you put out there. So I just want to mention this. I may join Snapchat. I'm not on it yet. I'm probably one of the few that's not on there because I think I'm kind of maxed out social media-wise anyway. But I do see the value in it. I'm just not sure if I want to make that leap because if I join it, I wanted to use it and not just have an inactive account. But I see everyone with these filters, and I'm like, oh, why do you do that? And a lot of colleges are on it. A lot of teams are on it. But that's just an example of, hey, that's a popular platform. But at me, and I'm on a lot of social media outlets, I don't think it's for me at this time. So you have to figure out what's best for you. But if used correctly, and you probably heard all this information before, if used correctly, I think social media can amplify your personal brand and keep you more visible. So that's what it's all about, regardless of what stage you are in your career. And it's not all about social media. Now, please believe to grow your brand and get into sports biz, it's more, I think it's really a combination of three different things. You got to have that visibility. That goes a long way, and social media helps with that. But you also have to have your experience, and you also need to build relationships. So it's kind of like a three-pronged effort. If you have all those in synergy, then I think things will start working out for you to achieve your ultimate goal, whatever it is in sports biz. So it won't happen overnight. You've got to be patient. I have a friend that I won't mention his name. He's a New Yorker. He has a law degree, and he works with NBA players. So he's well known in the business space, but he just joined Twitter about 6 months ago. And to me, Twitter is the best one to start with. If you're wary about joining different sites and you're not yet on Twitter, I say try that one first before moving on to everything else. But my friend, he's on Twitter trying to grow his followers, and don't worry too much about your followers. I think it's more important to be who you are authentically online and interact with your followers and respond to tweets, and then your followers will grow. But he's always on there complaining about, hey, I'm losing followers every day. What am I going to do? Or what have I not done? He thinks he's doing everything right. And it's okay, but it takes time. He's only been on there 6 months, so it just goes to show you, if you're not a celebrity, how are you going to grow your followers that fast? So just be realistic and be more proactive and worried about what you can't control, because you can't really control followers. unless you buy them, but I don't suggest doing that either. So I want to mention a term called LOL. Not laugh out loud. It's called loss of logo. And Corinne and Maria know this. They remember this. Actually, we met. I'll just backtrack. Corinne and Maria and I met in February at the National Sports Forum in Portland. We're a part of the BDSE cohort, Business of Diversity, Sports Entertainment. So there's like 25, 30 diverse sports biz professionals selected for this group. And that's where I met them. But during that week, which is focused on professional development for our cohort, Andy Dolich mentioned, hey, what happens when you leave your prestigious job and LOL happens, loss of logo? How is your brand going to carry you? Because people may not see you as, they might not look at you the same anymore. And that's unfortunate because some people are out there just to network just for their own benefit. And networking really isn't about your own, but it's really about building relationships. And you don't make an ask when you first network. You give back and you give and give, and then you build those relationships. And hopefully you can make an ask later on. But I was like, well, so Andy said, LOL, lost a logo. That really struck me because that happened to me a little bit when I left the SEC. I have 2 Twitter accounts. Didn't start out wanting to have that, but I started out at my personal account, which is open, and I tweet about a few different things there. I started an SEC account when I got there in 2011 because the communications department, just kind of going with the Joneses, they all had their names tagged with SEC. So Tammy Wilson, for example, her Twitter handle was SEC Tammy. I named mine SEC Chevonne, and Craig Pinkerton, who handles men's basketball there, is SEC Craig. So I decided just to create a work-specific Twitter account for that reason. And the fans of the SEC, great fans, they support the conference regardless of what school they attend. So I had a lot of followers on my work account, but when I announced nearly 3 years ago that I was going to the American Athletic Conference, I lost about at least 300 followers. I'm not even exaggerating. It's probably more than that. So that's what I mean. That's a loss of logo there. But thankfully, I think I've built enough equity in sports business, and I'm visible online that won't shatter and hurt me because, I am who I am, and I'm not tied down to, I don't think my job defines me totally. So hopefully everyone thinks like that and you're not affected by losing too many followers. But that's an example of LOL when I leave the SEC. Lost a logo right there. So I just wanted to say that because I think you should be more concerned about personally and professionally building yourself up instead of being focused on number of followers, because that will increase over time. Let's talk a little bit about, you probably heard this already also, but search engine optimization, SEO. So we're all human, right? And what you put out into the internet lives forever, and it's very hard to scrub information for better or for worse. So if there's negative or not pleasant information out there tied to your name, you'll want to bury that information lower on search engines. So that's why I think it's important to have a good online presence. There are certain websites that rank higher in SEO than others. Twitter ranks very high in SEO. If you don't do a Google search of your name, you should start doing that every few weeks just to see what's out there. But Twitter ranks very high. It'll be on the first page. YouTube ranks very high, and so does Google+. So the more that you put out into the digital space, the more it'll bury those negative articles and information that you may want hidden. Can't get rid of it, but the best thing you can do is try to bury it, because the statistics show that most people, if they do a Google, like an employer, if they do a Google search on you, most people will only just look at the first page. So I would focus maybe on just like the first 2 pages, and then hopefully the other stuff gets buried. But so that's that. So keep that in mind. When you create, if you're not on Twitter, if you create a Twitter handle, have your name tied into it somehow. That way people can search for you and tie your account to you. But that means that you've got to be careful about what you tweet also. So how many times have you heard about people posting Twitter statuses or Facebook posts and they lose their position? So it goes the same way with, I'm tied into sports because it's all your reputation on the line, but it's the same thing. You just have to be strategic and careful about what you post. And some best practices I've learned, what works for me, and I think it works across the board, is there's different audiences for each of your social media outlets. So I don't suggest linking Facebook or Twitter with Facebook. I know you can do that. I don't suggest linking Instagram with Facebook and vice versa. I think you should tailor those individual platforms differently. What's best for Twitter may not work for Facebook. Twitter is supposed to be, it's a micro-blogging platform, so it's built for multiple updates and status updates. I don't know if you want to do that on Facebook as much. Personally, I should say. Now, if you're a social media manager and you're running a college athletic site on there or running a team site, maybe you'll have multiple posts a day, but I don't think you should. I think maybe you should strategize in a different way for Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram, etc. So that's that. My example of that, of how things can go viral quick, for better or for worse. So I have a personal example of that a few weeks ago on Facebook. I didn't post a status update. I posted a position. I've recently accepted an adjunct teaching position, at a college here in Providence. So all I did was add that on as a work experience. That's it, and it got like almost 400 likes, and I didn't do a status update or anything. And I was kind of blown away. But that goes to show you that whatever you post, people are looking at. And I even hid it from my Facebook timeline. But as you know, you can hide it, but it still lives in other parts of Facebook. So just be extra careful about what you put into the digital space. And that, for me, that was great. I liked it. But because that was something positive to talk about, but nothing, if it was something else negative and it went viral, I probably would have reconsidered what I did or felt bad about that. So. And this is all stuff you know already. But I just wanted to make that point because I've experienced it myself. So, I can keep going, but feel free to chop in at the bottom and ask some questions. And I wanted to give an example of connections I've made from social media just to show you it really works and how you can leverage that professionally and personally. So I joined Twitter in 2009, like I mentioned, and became friends with Catherine Stewart. She is a sports marketing professor at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. And I don't remember how we originally connected. I remember I was at the SEC at the time, so it may have been something over sports. But we just started tweeting each other, and then she and I became friends through that. And that led to me speaking at her class in person when I was in Orlando for the COSIDA convention a few years ago. COSIDA is College Sports Information Directors of America. We meet during the NACDA and Affiliates Week. NACDA is the AD's group. So in college athletics, there's multiple groups that you can be members of, and it depends on what field you work in, but there's a group for business managers called CABMA. There's a group for marketing officers called NACMA. There's a group for development officers called NAD. Our communications group is called COSIDA. We meet under one umbrella at a convention every year in June. So we've been in Orlando the past few years. So as a result of my friendship with Catherine, I was able to speak to her class live about sports business. Question at the bottom. For people who are not a fan of social media, what platform would you recommend to start with? That's funny because I have a friend who's a little bit older and averse to social media. He doesn't want to try it. He's on Facebook personally, but and he's on Twitter just for his own work purposes. I'm trying to convince him to join Twitter for his personal brand, but he won't have it. So I think if you're worried about putting information out there or you're worried about things going viral, the best thing to start off with is probably, I would say, a toss-up between LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm more partial to Twitter, honestly, but professionally, I think you have to have a LinkedIn presence. So LinkedIn is nothing like Twitter. You have a profile picture. It's kind of like your digital resume. You'll want it filled out as completely as possible, but you don't have to list every position on your resume. It gets really long otherwise. But you can publish original content to Twitter, LinkedIn now too, and submit original articles. So that's a cool way they've expanded. You can also add personal interest to to LinkedIn. Why do I keep saying Twitter? You can add personal interest to LinkedIn. And I think that's important. You want to show that you're more than just a work person. So show your interest, because someone may latch on to that. I put my interest as traveling and extreme sports. I haven't done any extreme sports in a while, but I am interested in it. And you can also list your birthday, so people may want to send you a happy birthday note. I think you should definitely start off with LinkedIn, and then eventually the go-to, I think, would be Twitter, because it's a great source of breaking news, great way to keep up with people, and there are at least half a dozen Twitter chats I can think of that you can participate in to connect with other sports business professionals. There are a ton related to sports biz, but they're just Twitter chats about every topic you can think of. But if you want to hone in and connect to sports business professionals, I think Twitter's a great way to do that, and Twitter chats specifically. Second question, what kind of posts on Twitter would you recommend for young professionals looking to enter the biz? Well, outside of participating in Twitter chats, I think if you're trying to get someone's attention, it's always good to retweet their information or at them, asking a question. Or if you're trying to amplify yourself as a professional, tweeting interesting articles about sports business. So I think if you are first getting started, I don't think you should tweet about multiple things. You'll want to be seen. I'm sure most people want to be seen as a credible source on Twitter. That's how you build your personal brand. So if you're just growing or just entering the business, I think maybe just find a niche and stick with that, so people associate you with talking about events or facilities or communications. My niche hovers around giving back. I tweet about sports also, and I'll sprinkle in some inspirational quotes of wisdom, but that's my niche. Ariel, is it okay to have a personal account and a separate account for building your brand, or should you just mainly focus on being professional on social media? It's a great question. When I started out in 2009, I had a personal account that was open that tweeted about everything, and I still have that. That one's C Mansfield 27, but we'll talk about that later. And then I had one that was locked up. Didn't put my name on it because I didn't want my name associated with it, but it's kind of where I was like, just tweeting random stuff, funny things, and if I wanted to vent. I don't know why I thought it was okay to vent on Twitter back then, but I got rid of that second page quick when I realized, it's not good to have that, because anyone can tie you to your account. There are a lot of anonymous Twitter folks out there that put out bad information or try to be trolls, and if you're found out or tied to that, it's not going to be a good look for you professionally. So I think if you do want to go the personal route and lock it up, that's good. But even then, keep the tweets clean. And I really don't think it's necessary to have separate accounts. I do on Twitter, I should say, but everyone knows who you are. They will get to know who you are, so they know you. And I don't know if it's necessary to have two. And I say that because a lot of people will put on their handles or in the bios, my tweets are only, not reflective of the employer, and I think that's just a waste of space, because it doesn't matter if you have that on there or not. If you tweet like hateful things, it's still going to look bad on your employer and you, and then you'll probably get canned. So I think you should probably, anything you put out in the digital space never deletes, never erases, never goes away. So I think for the second part of your question, that you should put that best foot forward to be professional. I mean, Twitter's fun. The best thing, and I keep talking about Twitter because it's my favorite, but, and that's also where I made the most connections professionally, but you can chime in and show a personal side, and I think you should do that also. You don't want to be seen as a robot spewing out links all the time and promoting yourself, but so you can get personal with it and tweet during games. I like to tweet during, like, Super Bowl and Final Four and things like that. So get personal with it, but I think you should strive to be as professional as possible, but with a personal touch. Do you have any recommendations for young professionals to follow to get insight on sports biz? Ooh, I do. Let's see. going to make some mental notes now. Christy Dosh. I think her Twitter handle is her name. So Christy Dosh is Kristi. Dosh is Dosh. She is tweeting, and she tweets a lot about sports business and the changes in the athletics landscape, mostly from the college end, but she's a good follow for other reasons also. She worked at ESPN for a while as their sports business reporter. I also think Darren Rovell is a good follow because he tweets interesting things that you may not know about. And I don't mean like factual information. He'll tweet like he'll be at a ballpark and tweet what their meal of the day is, and it's like it's a hot dog covered in bacon with jalapenos or something like that. But it's a mega size, so it just shows you the diversity of sports business, I think. And so Darren Rovell, definitely. Christy Dosh, I think. John Shoemate, one of my friends, he is with Gator. No, he's with Aquafina now, but John is a great sports business professional to follow. His handle is John A. Shoemate. Those are the three I can think of, but there's a lot of folks out there. And what you can do is, if you're on, just getting onto Twitter, just kind of ask around and see what are the best handles to follow, and also the hashtags for Twitter chats. And if you like, we can all connect, and then I can pass along information. I mean, can't think of everyone right now, but there is a lot of good people out there to follow on Twitter, in addition to the hashtags to follow. How can Instagram be used to help my brand? So I'm a big fan of Instagram. I use it more on the personal level. But even if it's personal and locked up, like my pages, it all reflects on your personal brand. So people love visuals and video. So that's where Instagram is king, I think. The pictures can show a lot about you professionally. Say you're a student in undergrad, and you're a work study student, you're working on campus. I'll take Diamond, for example. Diamond just graduated from Johnson C. Smith, and she was from last year's class with Winning Edge Leadership Academy. She's actually going to be a graduate assistant at the CIAA conference this year, so congrats to Diamond. But Diamond's on social media, and she uses it well. But just speaking of Instagram, like if I was Diamond and she's working these events with the CIAA, I would just take pictures behind the scenes. People may not know that, hey, you're setting up on the court for a basketball, and there's the arena folks are laying down the logo. Take a picture of that and explain it, and people might be like, oh, that's pretty cool. So behind the scenes pictures are always great. I use Instagram in that way, and I also use it in a personal way because I think that works best for me. But Instagram, if used the right way, can definitely take your social media efforts and visibility to a new level. That's right. Diamond's doing it great. Diamond went to the NACDA convention this year in Dallas, wrote a blog post about it. So I'm sure she has great digital footprint out there. My Twitter handle is CMansfield27. CMAN, S like in Sam, F like in Frank, IELD 27. I wanted to say something else. What was I going to say? It was about social media, and I need some. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So maybe one of you all later on down the line, and we'll keep in touch. Let's keep in touch through Twitter. Maybe you can school me on Snapchat, because I would like to join and see what it's about. But I'm really hesitant to get on there just because it's hot. And I really need to know more. And I've heard the bad things about it too, but I've also heard good things. So for anyone that's out there, especially you students or anyone else that's using it, let's just keep in touch, and maybe you can school me on some things. Any last words of advice for professionals using social media, young professionals? Yeah. We do not, I should say, I wasn't privy enough to social media growing up, because when I was in high school and college, social media wasn't around. It wasn't until I got to grad school that social media became a little bit popular. So you all have a leg up on people because you're growing up with this technology. So I think just be careful about the space you put out there. But you have used that to your advantage. The older folks that are retiring and moving on, the baby boomers, there's going to become openings in the job space with them leaving. And with the new skills you have, and then the reach of digital and social, you're going to be coveted. As soon as you graduate, people will be looking for you. So I think if you're into the advertising and marketing, it would help to brush up on some graphics and things like that, because that's a good skill to have. Being able to design templates, and there's a big need for people like that. But I want to thank everyone for being here with me today. I think this is great what Winning Edge Leadership Academy is doing, and I know the recent class was announced last week, so I hope to connect with some of those professionals in the future. But I want to give you a lasting quote. My favorite quote is from Terry Williams. She is a PR professional. My favorite quote is, "Always remember that your reputation is your most valuable possession, and never forget that people are always watching you and your work." And that's true, more than anything else now in this digital age. So if you're strategic about what you do, I think you'll go far. But just don't think of it as a matter of having a good social media footprint will get you far, because you also need to build your relationships, and you also need to get that hands-on experience. It's a combination of all three. All right, so see Mansfield 27 on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn also as Chevonne Mansfield, and let's connect. Corinne, thank you for having me today. Thank you.